Welcome, bienvenue, willkommen, pожалуйста. Our workshop hosts for this pre-Congress WILPF International Workshop are Darian Elise DeLue, Ellen Mass, Alan Haber, Ellen Schwartz, and myself, Glo McMillan. We want to welcome our honored audience, and we really want to thank the Triennial Congress's facilitators for events, Shahanaz Bamosa and Roberta Nardi. So first, we have translated captions for you. Look for 3 dots at the lower right of your screen, or the word captions. Now that may be hidden. You may have to press a button or two. So we'll start with a slideshow to introduce the broad arc of historical anti-Russian bias, going back more than we can show a few hundred years, but we'll do at least 200. Just a brief glimpse of it. Our example is racist xenophobia, and this anti-Russian bias is the one that we are exploring. Excuse me. I'm sure you know others. Part 2 of our workshop will be breakout sessions, so please stay for these. Network ideas for peaceful change and for dismantling the monsters of the mind. So now let's get started. Next slide, please. Next. Alan, you're muted. Your voice.
Russia baiting, Russiaphobia, that's a soft power part of the power system of hard power and soft power. And there'll be more on this coming up, but it's all connected.
Thank you, Alan. Next slide. We'll begin with cartoons, satirical cartoons, like the famous cartoonist George Cruikshank at the time of the Napoleonic Wars. And here you see the biggest empire of the day, Great Britain, and there's a bear. He's represented by John Bull. And of course, the devil of that day was Napoleon and the French army. So this is where the devil gets it. And you can see he's being drawn down into a dung heap by the devil. Next slide, please. I'm highlighting in the close-up the fact that John Bull, the symbol of the great British Empire, and believe me, all empires do these tricks, was cleverly pushing this bear into the conflagration ahead of John Bull. And that was part of the humor in 1813 when this was done, right? Just immediately after some of the battles and when Napoleon was on the decline. Next. Our next slide shows a poem, or at least part of a poem. It's Alfred Lord Tennyson's The Charge of the Light Brigade. It has the famous line, "Ours not to reason why, ours but to do or die." And that means don't question this battle that we're going into. Do not question. However, at the same time, the British and other Western European powers were making a distinction between themselves and Russia, saying that we are not like Russians, slavish, servile people. And yet, in this poem, it says, don't question. So make up your own minds about that. The first celebrity often credited in European culture is Florence Nightingale. who became the angel of the Crimean War battlefield. And she was a big factor in legitimizing and making war seem noble, and women who served the men who served. So this is the face of the woman who became perhaps the first celebrity, Florence Nightingale. Next. Next. This is the French face of Russian baiting or Russian aversion, where we're avoiding Russia or we're teasing Russia. So here is the Crimean war room of the Russian Tsar. He's about to slash France into little bitty pieces. And behind him is his Cossack lackey with a spear. And this is the view of the most famous caricature cartoonist of that time in France, I can't pronounce it, Honoré Daumier. Not doing justice to the name. Thank you. That is the three that we have. And I hope you got something from these three images of Russia from the Napoleonic era, which is far back, the early 19th century. Next slide, please.
Jane Addams is WILPF's most recognized popular founder and global pace setter in peacemaking and social service settlement housing for the poor around the nation, was the social model of 1889 Chicago's Hull House. She included the arts as a major learning mechanism for strengthening women's lives with plays, music, and discussions. Emily Greenbalch, WILPF's secretary and founder, also Nobel gifted pace setter for women's in economics and sociology, where she taught at Wellesley University for 30 years, and the author of books on Haiti, Slavic immigrants in Boston, and 12 other books. She was instrumental in developing UN Law of the Seas, a gargantuan global peace organizer gathering women from 40 countries to The Hague twice to prevent World War I, with support from U.S. President Wilson, and to support peace efforts for World War II. However, Emily, although from noted family in Boston, is not well recognized there. A small WILPF group is trying to change that. These are the one of the important U.S.-Soviet women's exchanges back in the day. And the women are from, of course, the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom, but more will be said about that. This is the earliest of the exchanges and the contacts. Okay. The 1877 map of monstrous octopus covering all of Russia is response to the British interests that feel threatened by the Russian Tsar. In the late 19th century, seen in political satirical maps in Japan, Turkey, France, Italy, it shows expanding empires to the country running counter to their aims. This serio-comic war map from the famous cartographer Frederick Rose is in behalf of pro-Turkish Russiaphobe Tories, run by British Prime Minister Disraeli, who satirizes opposition of the anti-Turkish Russophile liberals. Turks are counterweight to Russian expansion. If Russia captured Constantinople, it would take a warm water port on the Mediterranean close to the new Suez Canal, which is a purview of Britain. Some of these conflicts will resonate with you today within our Russiaphobic Western world. In other words, like today, energies of large nations are focused on the Russian monster. Here, which you can see more closely if you go to Frederick Rose's maps, you will see this more closely. Turkey lies below the monster. The gold watch is coveted Constantinople. Greece is the crab irritating Turkey. There's a wound at Sebastopol. There's an embraces, the Shah of Persia embraces the the octopus embraces the Shah of Persia. The one of the arms, the tentacles are squeezing the life out of Poland. England and Scotland have a gun. Ireland is the hooded monk. All of these are symbolic of the response to the Russian monster. When of course, some of these countries are doing their own expansion. Okay. Here we go. Just 1 minute. Okay, you have me again. Russiaphobia, the name of our program today, is embedded in our patriotic belief that U.S. policy must be rooted in defense of national interest. As former Secretary of State Albright put it, the U.S. stands taller than other nationals and therefore sees further. The assumption is we're not only wise, but objective and influenced by a higher standard values with an all-seeing eye above the fray. With superior ethnocentric judgment over many decades, we're unable to understand other nations' rationale for their policies and their concerns. Many colleagues say we're an objective broker between Israel and Palestine, and we could never be influenced by national prejudice. There's no earthly reason for Russia to object to NATO settling up shop on its borders. After all, NATO is a neutral body that protects member nations. Common sense, however, suggests that only a moron would approve expansion without guaranteeing Russian interests and security, says Carnegie's study of Russiaphobia. That's the name of their article. Old Cold Warriors continue to preach Russiaphobia today with their lack of flexibility in adapting to multipolarism, thus keeping their careers going by encouraging hostilities. Today, their Harvard policies dominate independent countries in the former Soviet bloc in direct competition with Russian trade, but without Russia's interference. Russia's expansionism pre-1917 is removed from today's historical context. Former foreign policy makers whose policies continue today, Richard Pipes, Henry Kissinger, and Brzezinski, claimed Russia is unique, no context with imperial aim, but ignore 19th century colonial France, Holland, Belgium, Britain, US. Russians are particularly brutal, blast the media to us, validating the stereotype, especially during this present European war. Explaining the 1996 vote in Russia for communists, princes of Cold War just mentioned cite Stalinism and Marxism-Leninism as choice determinants, with today's 80-year gap of change. However, those in peace work know their system now mixed in the 1980s and 90s since Yeltsin and Glasnost. Over 190 Russian nationalities and nearly as many indigenous groupings make Russia a very interesting place today, with its history integral to European history. But European leaders don't see it like that. The geopolitical pivot to today's Asia or Russia, Eurasia educates some, but global war headlines become public reality, unfortunately. The mixed Eurasian culture of social conduct, arts, global exchange continues in that direction, away from modern Western culture of the US, Europe, and allied nations. Sadly, unknowing of our cultural history and immigrant roots, with today's attention to Slavic roots, it takes its toll on our own understanding of current wars in Europe, but also unknowing our West Asia or Middle East roots, where personal tax payments for war are spent. WILPF's active history of peace and freedom includes Russia. Thanks to far-seeing leaders such as former Geneva Secretary Edith Ballantyne, a book to come out this month. In 1983, Libby Frank and Jeannie Silva brought a delegation to Moscow with other delegations before and after. WILPF President Kay Camp brought Russian women to her home, with heavy FBI scrutiny discovered later. WILPF organized the first ever US-Soviet dialogue and exchange at Bryn Mawr College in 1961 to discuss denuclearizing, among other topics, with continued exchanges.
Well, the octopus is everywhere. There are divided spheres of influence. We need to recognize fundamentally there are no deep reasons for conflict in the world. There's enough room for everyone and resources enough, if more fairly and caringly distributed. We have inherited a war system in the shaping for generations. It is a system of power, hard and soft, structured as hierarchy, patriarchy, command, imposition, and ultimately violence. Full spectrum domination is its aspiration in its sphere of influence for all the countries. And for the United States, the intent seems on continued expansion of its sphere of influence. They take money from the people to support their military power and a judicial legislative apparatus to make it seem legal, and they lie to the people about its necessity, because always the enemy is on the verge of attack, ready to stab you in the back, if not forever vigilant. This is the Russiaphobia. People are deprived of what they need, and art and weak appeals keep them agreeing to the necessity of their deprivation. Old phobias are amplified and renewed. The government has come to represent this military, industrial, and legislative media complex, not the citizenry. The citizenry need to be cajoled into going along with their own deprivation. We need a new third force above the governments, of the people, humanity worldwide, calling the war powers to the peace table, insisting that they honor the human life system imperatives of a change in priorities if we are to survive. That is the divided sphere of influence. That is what we are dealing with in the war system. And we can go on to the next slide. The civil society across borders, curious to meet the other in human form, is a challenge to the war makers who rely on popular ignorance, old prejudices, and fearful phobias and hardly know whom they are talking about. Creating a third force of humanity. Women's International League for Peace and Freedom and all our sister and brother organizations in every country is our common need. Calling the war makers to the peace tables and all of us on all sides, all of us, to consider what is necessary for peace and cooperation, for a system change from might makes right to right makes might. WILPF in particular is a voice to challenge patriarchy and hierarchy, calling for gender justice and rebalancing gender participation in decision-making, bottom-up democracy, calling the war makers to come to the peace table and deal finally with climate and life system challenges. We need in all our countries to fund the life system and withdraw support from the growth of the war system. We want to meet and know one another, to counter current propaganda wherever it appeals in art, news, and history telling. Those are the phobias. We inherited this system. We didn't create it, but it is our option to change it, and survival so requires. And to repeat, there are no deep reasons for any of the big conflicts in the world. Cooperation can save us. Compassion is the real soft power. Without it, we may be doomed. Look at the hands across the line. That's what we need to model, all of us, in whatever ways we can. This is meeting human to human, above the war system, underneath it, all around it. The war powers are but a minority. All of us together are the humanity for the future. That's enough for this slide. Now we can go and see how all this Russia baiting has taken place.
Blow, you're on mute. We can't hear you.
Sorry. It was going to be Elena's slide, but I can handle it. Elena was going to talk about the positive side of Russian music, which is people you've heard of, Tchaikovsky, Rachmaninoff. There are many great Russian composers. They're a big part of our classical history, which is part of European culture. But here, the pop singer and group member Sting had a song from 1985 where you can read the words. I won't bother to read them for you. I think it's a very moving song, and we didn't bring you all of the lyrics because there are copyright issues. So if you're interested, you could probably hear the song on YouTube. I'll just give a few more seconds, and then Ellen can advance the slide.
Okay, I just wanted to add to Tchaikovsky, Shostakovich, Stravinsky, Scriabin, Prokofiev, Rachmaninoff, Rimsky-Korsakov, Mussorgsky. There was an unofficial block against their being played here by arts organizations and venues, which independently decided to do so because of government's policies. Many continue the censorship.
But we love their music, and they are still being played all over the United States at the present time. And we hope that will continue, as it did not during World War I, when German composers were banned from many US orchestras. So I think we've done all this slide. We're ready to go on, Ellen. Well, here we have the very big school of art called abstract expressionism. No matter where in the world you're from, you've probably heard of abstractionism or have artists in your country who do abstract art. Unfortunately, this was partially weaponized in the early 1950s by groups such as MoMA, the Museum of Modern Art, and they were having shell corporations that had some ties to our covert agencies under Nelson Rockefeller, for instance. So here is a Russian, which I had never seen until today or recently, and he's satirizing this abstract expressionism, which can represent nothing. You should not be able to pick out anything in an abstract painting. So he has in the upper right a donkey using his tail to make an abstract painting, and in the bottom they're showing this wonderful painting to the very wealthy collector class. In the middle you see a chimp who's making another abstract painting, and that one isn't too bad actually. But on the right, we see artists contorting themselves and painting while standing on their heads. And it's a broad satire on abstraction. And the charge from the US, you can see what the titles say, is that realism is very boring and it's not a living art form. The only living important art form was abstract. The rest were for the history cabinet. However, the very highly regarded art historian, you see on the bottom the reference, Frances Stonor Saunders, who is in her family background, I don't usually give pedigrees, but she's related to the nobility of England, one of the oldest Catholic noble families of England. And she's trained at Oxford and is a doctor of art history. She was commissioned by the BBC to do a new and different look at modern art. She didn't know any of this was there, but when she was doing her research, she started uncovering the Farfield Foundation and a lot of shell corporations. And she put together a picture of how we were making a case that we had the art of freedom and the Russians had nothing. Their culture was simply trash. It was only realism. So for this book, The Cultural Cold War, Frances Stonor Saunders was awarded the Royal Historical Society's Gladstone Memorial Prize. And that's one of the highest historical prizes in the UK. So she's much honored, and she's also somewhat controversial because there are other books out, and I welcome anyone going and reading all the parallax views on this whole issue. But for now, we will say that abstract expressionism no longer rules the waves. It's not the only show in town. It's not hegemonic. And when the George Lucas Museum of Narrative Art opens on September 22nd in Los Angeles, narrative art is the opposite. That is what realism is. It's narrative art, sometimes called illustration. But anyway, George Lucas does not believe in these distinctions or the hegemonic power of abstractionism. So this new museum that will be open September 22nd by George Lucas and his wife, Melody Hobson, and their very talented staff will really challenge that view. And next slide. All right, well, now getting to something we all participate in, going to the movies. Many people may have missed this, but there is a whole genre, I think we've made clear by now, of Russian character bashing, or the traits of average Russians, bashing them. Now, I want to make a clear distinction here between actions of the ruling class, which we don't approve of, and we have problems with many of the things they do, just as many of the things other governments do. But they are not joined at the hip to the civil society and the poor working Russians. However, when we have problems with leaders, we tend to make films that are generally satirizing the people and that they have terrible traits. So the best picture of 2024 was a comedy called Anora. And you can read the kinds of people who are Russian living in New York who are in Anora. It not only won the Best Picture, but 5 other Oscars. And this is the image that we put out in our Academy Award festival that went out all around the world in 2024. And it's part of a long genre of Russians and Eastern Europeans even only being given certain types of characterizations in films and on TV series. I see some from BBC, like Lewis, Inspector Lewis, that they do it too. It's not just the very popular, some of our PBS style series also engage in this. All right, so could we move on to the next slide? Okay, so moving from the more widely viewed genre of film, we go to plays. And I actually was in touch with the Penobscot Theater Company, and they were very happy to allow us to use this little poster that they used for their production. So in this case, you can read the plot. We have people that are caught up, swept up in changes. Many countries have this happen, where one day you're one thing, one day you're ruled by one thing, and the next day something else. And so this playwright, Lauren Yee, wanted to show this and to show just what it's like to try to reconstitute your life as everything completely changes and it's very chaotic around you. I hope you can get a chance somewhere to see this play. I have never seen it in where I live. All right, I don't believe there are 2 people speaking at the same time. Could we go on? Oh, here's the next slide now. And very important thing, and some of the people even among my presenters said, are we going to give that kind of prominence to just food? However, food is extremely political and national. In World War I, we changed the name in the US of hamburgers to Salisbury steak to make it sound less German. That's how important and how subliminal some of the things about food actually are. But on the other hand, food is where it's a fairly safe way to get to know some other culture, where you may be frightened of it or you're not sure about that culture, but you might go to a fair and eat some of their food. And that's the lowest level, easiest, safest way to meet other people. And of course, when we don't want that to happen, we do things. We remove things from our supermarkets that have the names or are parts of that national cuisine. They are just gone. Nobody announces that they will be taken out. They're just no longer there. And Russian dressing is in far fewer stores than it used to be. It used to be a staple of our, bottled salad dressings, but you may find it in far less places now. So these things are considered a bit silly, but they're not, because Russian dressing may be one of the few things that's good or positive with that word. When I say meat pies, there are all kinds of meat pies that we eat in the United States. Burritos. They have little dumplings, in various cuisines that are can be eaten by hand. Mini pot pies. And the Russians have piroshkis. In Wales, they had what they called pasties, with the miners would carry those down into the mines. And in the eastern part of the US, miners and factory workers in Pittsburgh would buy these. They would have little stores at the gates of the steel mills and the mines. And our workers here in the United States became very fond of these pasties, Cornish pasties. We can move on now. Recipe Day in Western newspapers is especially important because many newspapers now carry very few recipes from other cultures. And there are things we can do. We can suggest recipes from our own cultural background to the whatever address you have in your newspaper that you can write to. So that's one thing you can do. We can also have food festivals. If we are in little groups at our local parks and rec, we can suggest bringing in the ethnic clubs and having a food festival where they just bring little hand fast foods. And that can undercut negative exclusion of some people. Now, when we don't do this, and the subject of this talk is excluding people, censorship via omission, which is the most effective kind. Having nothing Russian in any of our food festivals encourages the Russians eat nothing but slop, stereotype. All right, so with that, we're going to our next slide. What we can do are a few things. These are just general, and it's just a bridge to get us into the next slide. So Alan, you were going to take this. Do you want to read the things we can do? You have to unmute, Alan. Unmute yourself.
Yeah, so this is 1, 2, 3 of how to create a climate of compassion. First, we have to replace the Russiaphobia with other ethno and other ethnophobia behaviors with open encounter. We have to meet the other, get to know the humanity. And we start where we are, with our neighbors in our own communities, in the world where we live, but moving on beyond that world. How can we get beyond our limited sphere, which often just reinforces the phobias and the prejudices that come from the media and what we've been acculturated to. And we all need to make new friends across walls of division, sometimes walls of hate. The worst thing is fear. As Franklin Roosevelt said, the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. If we can get beyond the fear and look openly to who we are dealing with in humanity, then we can move forward as one human community, diverse as we are. So I think that is the opening to breaking into smaller groups, however that's going to be organized, and begin our own conversation. So back to Gloria, and what do we do next?
I think we'll end our slides, and I know I've been getting help from Ellen how to start our breakout rooms, and we're going with automated. So now if this works right, everyone, you'll be assigned to one, okay? And I don't know how to do it any other way. So we have, it looks like everybody's in one room. Oh, add a room. So I can move people, I guess, to the second room. Oh, there's so many of you. How are we going to do this? All right, I'll just start moving people to room 2. Move to. Oh, room 2. This is going to take a long time. Oh my goodness.
Do you have a question that you want to ask people before you move them?
Just to interact with each other and try to find ways that you can overcome some of this waxy buildup of centuries. It is taking a while. We're going to be.
Yeah, what happened to doing it by automated?
I had it on automated. You know, I'm not the expert here. I'm doing this the very first time in live time.
I think automated works only if you have the rooms already.
Well, nobody told me that. Nobody told me that.
Mhm.
10 in room 2. So I think we can move on and add a room 3 now, and we'll just start popping you into these rooms. Hopefully this will be good and you will enjoy whoever move. It's random, totally random, no favoritism here.
How long are we going to stay in the rooms?
Oh, good question. I would say 10 minutes at least.
Okay, so you have to set that up to remind us when that time is coming, so we come back to the main room.
Someone
Right.
will,
That's one of the settings in the,
we will get through this.
It's wonderful to see so many people here from different sections as well as the US section. Welcome, everyone.
I'm moving people from one room to another. Now, this isn't right.
oh, that's fun.
Yeah, I just realized what I'm doing. You already had a room and I was moving you to another room. Oh,
There's also a way to,
please don't talk to me anymore, everyone, because you know, if I do it, unless it's something you know that will work. I apologize to all of our friends in many countries. Now you're getting a real sight of whatever. This is room 2, this is room 3. I have to keep going back to room 1, which still has 14, and I'm going to move people to, there only have 4 in that room. Let's see.
I think it's time for us to have a Zoom training.
I think that would be wonderful.
yeah, it changes a lot. It's changed a lot. So
Okay, I'm
we'll
getting
be there.
there, folks. We should be getting there by now. I think there's people are really piling up in the other rooms. I'm going to make these like 10 people per room because that may work.
I think we need more rooms. We still have 25 people in this room.
Yay. Which room are you in?
The room that you are in.
The main room.
Main room. Okay.
If you were in
She hasn't actually moved anybody yet. We're 27 participants.
Will you stop? Wait, I am moving people. On my screen, I see you being moved.
Not on our screen.
Yes, we're all still in the main room. You've got to,
Oh, okay. Well, maybe this all has to be populated and then I hit a button.
yes, I think
No
so.
one explained this to me exactly. They sort of half explained it, and that's all I can do. Room 1.
Well, don't worry. When the recording is made, this part can be eliminated.
That's good.
yeah, maybe we should stop or pause the recording now.
Can't do that. I'm not an octopus. No,
maybe somebody from the groups wants to share a little bit of what came up in the group.
Oh, right. Oh, Delia, we almost forgot. Oh my gosh, somebody has resumed the recording. Okay. May we hear from people? What did you discuss in your groups? And it doesn't matter if more than one of you from a group speak, as far as I'm concerned. Go ahead, go for it.
Are we sure the recording is on? Because
yes,
Yeah.
okay.
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
Well, from Shireen and Adelia and Ivona, I believe, it was a wonderful discussion of on the topics with references to the slides. It was just wonderful, I think. Maybe Adelia will talk.
And we had Mary from, this is group 1, Mary Sanderson says it swamped all my life, this Russiaphobia issue, and she's so glad that it is now. Georgia didn't know, but she's from the same, didn't know so much about the attitudes of others, but she felt that Galena in her group, I suppose this Galena, how do you say her last name?
DeRoik.
Is
DeRoik.
DeRoik, who's from has done Russian history and literature teaching, is there and a defender of the culture. And then Dorian, who was there, said there's enormous immigrant community where she is, and they're speaking Russian, and that her branch could maybe get involved when we talked about doing something. And then there was the importance of stereotyping and separating people from the government, said Georgia. So that's it for group number one.
Okay, I have Teresa Elamine's hand raised, and Teresa.
Oh, thank you, Gloria. It's so good to see you.
Good to see you too. Hey.
Well, I was in the group with Peggy Dobbins, Tina Shelton, and others, and I spoke about the importance of the Soviet Union before its fall, where Russia was by far the center, and the fact that I was a union organizer in the 80s when I learned that the AFL-CIO was in collaboration with the US government during the Cold War to have Black people, in particular members of the A. Philip Randolph Institute, travel around Africa and try to deter people from building alliances with the Soviet Union and support US imperialism only. And I remember being at meetings where folks who had been given those trips to travel to speak up for the US and against Russia was quite prominent, particularly in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And I also reminded people that the Soviet Union supported Cuba. And when the Soviet Union fell, that was beginning of the troubles of the Cuban Revolution because it lost its main benefactor. And I mentioned Russia and the Ukraine war, and I would appreciate if Martin, who had a very interesting take on why he seems to be supporting the Russian intervention into Ukraine. And I would appreciate it because it was right at the last few seconds of the breakout that Martin spoke up, and it was sounding rather interesting. So I wish he would say what he was thinking.
Okay, could we then hear from Martin if he's still here? All right. Well, we do have another hand, or I thought.
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Well, what I think is very important is, well, let me put it this way. I've been very interested in the Cold War and the issue of U.S. hegemony, world hegemony. And what goes along with physical hegemony is psychological hegemony. And what I think of as psychological hegemony is deciding what reality is without paying attention to the other side. So basically, Russia's explanations for why it is engaged in the Ukraine war are, for the most part, dismissed as, dishonest or whatever. And most people don't even know what the Russian government's views are. And so I would say that in order to really oppose Cold War and Russiaphobia, we need to take into account what the Russian government is saying and give it careful consideration. And that's what I was saying was based upon the fact that I've tried to do that.
I think you make some very good points about parallax views. Thank you, Martin. I see Adelia has her hand up.
No, I just wanted to highlight some of the topics we saw,
Sure.
in our group. Basically, I'd like to mention the fact that the prevalent Russophobia is, justifying this increase of militarization in Europe that it seems to be preparing to attack Russia. So it makes it, all this campaign and all this cultural in the media and arts and everything that was mentioned in the presentation is very important to counteract. There is this process of dehumanization, and a lot of people have criticized even Putin for having been very naive in believing or not understanding the depths of this hate to Russia from the West. So, they're accusing him of having been naive and even believing a little bit to Trump and, his supposed friendly attitude at the beginning when, the West as a whole is prevalently feeding this hate. And then also we discussed, how it's been forgotten. So based on this is how important it is to do things, like you mentioned, all different things to counter this food or, everything like we will have done in the past to, create dialogues and make people meet people. Women have done it, and we can continue that tradition and make efforts in that direction. Same could be with Iranian women. We have all kind of prejudices or ideas about women in Iran. We hardly ever hear the women themselves talking, and they are many times very upset and very resented about the views the West have of them, wanting to liberate them without ever listening to the women there. That's okay, because it's kind of similarity, all this dehumanization and hate created against peoples of countries for which war and business that make money from war, you know, maintain this kind of hate. And in the same attitude or vision as counter this was the idea also of reminding that the world and restoring the history or the role that Russia plays in liberating the West and the world or the Nazis. This Liberation Day is only celebrated in Russia. The West, the media West, and all the official education institution and media forget about this measure and the cost that it had for Russia. The millions of lives that were sacrificed to ensure the freedom from the Nazis at that time. And that's completely vanished. It really takes a lot of reading to even get to know that happened. So one idea was to celebrate that date and to make sure that we in WILPF can do something about that and educate. Yeah.
I agree, and thank you for that observation. Are there other hands? You still have your hand up? Are you just? Is it
Yeah,
just?
I'll put it down. I don't know.
Okay, Cheryl. I see Cheryl Spencer.
Yes. Good morning, good evening, everybody. I was in breakout room number 2. There were 6 of us there. Alan was one of them. Olivia Brown, Nathan Mark from Uganda, Shahanez from Yemen, myself, Kara Bissell from the US, and
Tucson.
Yes, from Tucson. One of the points that I made, and Olivia expanded on my point, was that science diplomacy has been working for decades between Russia, China, and the US. I myself, when I was a practicing physicist, worked with Chinese laboratories. They were actually making magnets for the particle accelerator in Japan that I was also helping to create. So, and then we have many Russian collaborations with Russians over the years between particle physicists and myself, and that this would continue if our current government was not such an anti-science and anti-science collaboration point of view, which is what my professional society is currently fighting against. So, and the International Space Station is an excellent vehicle of science of collaboration. It has Russians in it. It has people from many different countries. Astronauts go up there.
On a science note, may I say something?
Yeah.
We used to celebrate Yuri Gagarin Night. That's a global event that is celebrated in many countries, and it used to be celebrated here on the U of A campus at the Lunar and Planetary Lab. And that's an event that people can get involved with.
Right. In fact, I remember when he went up, I thought to myself, I'd like to be an astronaut back when I was like, 11 years old when he went up. So Somebody else from Breakout Room 2 want to say other things we talked about? Alan, for example? Or Cara?
Are there any groups we haven't heard from?
Cara, did you want to say something about Veterans for Peace?
It was also pointed out in our group that we can travel to other countries to dispel the black or gray propaganda that's out there, some of which we've been talking about this at last hour plus. And we can risk arrest, and we can demonstrate, we can write our elected officials. That was all pointed out. And writing our elected officials was already pointed out earlier in our forum here.
Sure, always, on every issue, but also write your newspaper about recipes.
Exactly, yes.
That sounds very trivial, but it's not. Ellen Mass.
In the meantime of the actual extended invitation from St. Petersburg to come and visit, yes, of course, we have all the daily things to do with newspapers and outreach and sharing and scientific support for international exchange between Russia and the U.S. But in the tradition of Women's International League for Peace and Freedom, we have the opportunity to actually make an exchange, and there's no time more appropriate than the present to build some bridges, build some cultural bridges, as well as working in our own communities to stop the Russiaphobia. So I'm hoping that some people will start to gather and say, I want to go to St. Petersburg. I want to have this conference, because there'll literally be thousands of people there if they come, because
When is this?
Yeah, tell us more about this. Remind us, Eleanor, about this conference, please.
Well, the extension was at the Baltic webinar that Gloria had, and that he actually said, we'd like to have another conference with you to come to St. Petersburg. And he didn't give an exact timing, but all that stuff could be easily worked out.
Well, I'm sure that you can email us some more information on that. I could try to get it to everyone who attended. Peggy, you have your hand up. You're muted, Peggy. Peggy, muted.
I just wanted to follow up on what Ellen's addressing. If there is a group of women in Russia with whom, or if we could even contact, I wouldn't object to contacting the Russian government and asking if there's a group of women that would like to represent their interest in peace to meet with the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom. I think I've always wondered why there wasn't a Russian section, and the same on China. So I think at this juncture, when WILPF began, I think it was an effort between women from countries that were about to go to war. And I really would love to see an effort by International Women's League for Peace and Freedom to find some way. I know their governments are different and the roles of civil societies are different, but figuring out how to do that so that they would be genuinely free to participate and we wouldn't be recruiting people who were opponents would be, I think, I hate to see for feminism to be used as a tool for changing the regimes of other countries. And that's sort of what has happened recently. And I'm glad it didn't happen in Iran. I think that there's certainly been an effort to make it happen in other places. But I think countering that and finding some way, that's as much as I can say is that wish.
Okay, well, we'll take that into consideration and try to follow up in our different bodies within WILPF.
Ellen Schwartz has her hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, and disarm is a very prominent one. Okay, Ellen Schwartz, go ahead.
Well, just with respect to why there's no Russian WILPF section, I suppose there could be now, and maybe there could have been for a while. WILPF historically had a relationship with the Soviet Women's Federation.
Thank you.
But there was an international WILPF proscription against setting up, at least at one time, I go back to, never knew Jane Addams, but I did know Ruth Gage Colby. So we couldn't have a section in countries that, I forget how it was worded, countries that weren't free. And so there couldn't be a Soviet section, and there were other, now that it's a workers' paradise and now that it's an oligarch's paradise, I suppose it'd be all right to have a WILPF section in Russia.
I think that the dialectic between freedom and peace is a very exciting one.
And a democracy, we could have a section in Israel because it's a democracy. Don't ask me. Or I'll tell you. Okay, that was all I had to say.
Okay, next hand is Martin.
Well, yes. Well, I do know there's been some joint meetings of Americans and Russians through Rotary Club International. So that might be also something that WILPF could explore.
Thank you. I think they should follow up on that. I'm just trying to type at the same time, but okay, Alan?
Yeah, I was struck in our group, the woman from Yemen said that their country, and this is my experience, is seen only through the eyes of the war system and not through the fullness of their culture and their art and their whole society. And I think that's the problem, that the war domination of the war system and the global resources keeps us very narrow in our focus of what the different countries of the world are actually about. And so we need a much wider focus. And that just struck me because I also, from what Teresa said, it was also my experience in the United States that the anti-communism of the United States influenced the social democrats and the progressive people in the labor movement to be limited in who they saw as their allies and our actual comrades. That we need, that how this functions in our own country is very destructive to the collaboration and cooperation that we need to advance social policy.
Okay, well, Alan, you made some really important points about the various areas that have been clogged and blocked, and including unionism, union organizations, and that's terrible because that's the one of the few voices of the people. So, Ellen Thomas.
Yeah, this is just information for everybody. I have put a whole bunch of links into the chat at the bottom of the chat from Ellen Mass that she put together for this event. And she had started it at the beginning of the meeting, but I want to make sure everybody got all of the links.
And we'll say, I guess now is a good time to save your chat. And in some systems, what you do is you open the chat window. I'm going to do that just to be sure I'm doing the correct instruction. At the top of my screen, there are 3 dots. And then if you hover on them, it says more. And one of the things you can do is save chat, which I just did. So just to practice it. So there were a lot of things this time in chat. So I recommend you do that. Cheryl.
Yes, and I'm sorry, I don't remember the name of the woman, but there has been in the past, and I don't think it was WILPF, but it was woman-led. She would take groups to I think when it was the Soviet Union, specifically to meet the Russian people, and she did that for many years. And so I'm sure if we were to Google it, we could find examples of groups that have been visiting Russia to engage in this people-to-people diplomacy, which is very important for countering what our media is trying to tell us about how awful some of these countries are. And just to say, in 1981, I went to China at the with a group of women scientists. 1981, we were invited by the All China Women's Federation, and we were treated very well, and met some women who I continued to be in touch with for many years. So this kind of travel is very important. Thank you.
Travel is important, but for those who don't have the wherewithal or not of a status that they get invited, simpler things can be done. I mean, things can be done. Look at your TV programming and complain if all they do is put hateful characters in from, write about it. Say, aren't there other kinds of characters ever? And you could do that when you're very poor and you can't go anywhere. All right. I see Martin Schultz's hand up.
Yes. I don't know if you're referring to the Center for Citizens Initiatives. Sharon Tennyson headed it up for a number of years.
Yes, exactly.
I don't think she's still the head of it, but it is still active. It's Center for Citizens Initiative.
Okay, Martin, and now we've got about 5 more minutes. So after Peggy, this may be it. Ellen?
Yeah.
Ellen?
Yes. Okay. Emily Greenbaum, our founder and one of the greatest peace leaders that the world has ever seen in terms of, in those days, bringing women together, which should always be recognized. And you need to keep her in mind by reading a little bit about her. There's several books.
And seeing our video. What about our video?
So in the chat is a video of the commemoration that Wellesley College had of the 50th Nobel anniversary, that we did a very large commemoration with the niece of Emily Greenbaum was there. The president of Wellesley College spoke. This was 98.
Oh, you did another video, though. I was thinking of the one about her books. You were saying her books. The one about our Slavic fellow citizens, which is on top.
She wrote a book, Our Slavic, which was in the commemoration.
And
the commemoration has the words of Emily throughout the whole commemoration was reading from Emily's own words.
Okay, but we have
it's a formal book. It's a formal commemoration that was done by Robin Lloyd and myself. Robin is a videographer and Will from Burlington.
Okay, but you're eliminating the other video on our Slavic fellow citizens specifically, which is more tied to this topic specifically.
No, the Slavic citizen one is
in the link. Did you
commemoration? So go to that, and there's a Slavic citizen aspect of this commemoration video.
Okay, well, we need the other link, Ellen, if you can find it, to the other video.
I don't have
separate video, and it's
okay.
It's on the WILPF website. Separate video. We need that link, Ellen. You can add it right now.
So anyway, please go back, get the chat, copy all of it. We've got the music. We've got the some of the best recent articles, and you've even got the Baltic webinar we've talked about, where we were invited to come to St. Petersburg.
Oh, we do need that, Ellen.
My turn.
Okay, but we need that other link. See if you can find it. Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Peggy.
Well, I want to thank Ellen for mentioning Emily and Gloria for going back to Russia in order to make the point that Emily made, the point that we can't deal with war unless we deal with the profit makers. And I just wanted to point out that for that brief period when the major profit makers thought they were going to make some major profit in Russia, the Russiaphobia faded, and then it returned because it turned out they couldn't make that profit. So let's just remember the main cause that drives the war.
Oh,
and
yeah.
move the money.
Yes.
Gloria, we have to find out where
I was just talking. You have to do both. It isn't just money, because that would reduce everything to economics. And this cultural underpinning is extremely important. And sometimes people will keep it up even when it's not popular to keep it up, because prejudice doesn't go with just what's the current government pattern. It's a prejudice, and they go on and on. Okay, so I think we're up to about 1 minute to go.
Can we find where people are from?
We don't have time, unfortunately, because
I don't see why we can't continue it.
We're given 90 minutes.
No, it extends. It extends.
I'm from Lebanon.
We can extend another 5 minutes.
If we can extend it, then go ahead. Start saying where you're from. I'm from Tucson. Let's go on. Next.
Costa Rica, here.
Where are you from?
Costa Rica.
Oh, Costa Rica.
America.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, we've got a Yemen and a Costa Rica. Who else do we have?
Shireen, Sylvie.
Come on. Where are you?
I am Sylvie. I'm from Cameroon.
All right.
Central Africa.
Cameroon checks in. Hello, Cameroon.
Yeah.
And I'm Shireen from Lebanon.
Lebanon. Wonderful. Where are you? There you are. Portia Gage. And where are you from, Portia? Did I see Portia? There you are. No, that's Darian. Where's Portia?
Down here. She must have left. She was here for a
No,
while.
Portia's still here, but she's muted. Joan and Portia are from San Jose, California area in the US. Thank you all. Wow.
Yeah. Thank you. And anybody else?
Michaela, speak up.
Well, they don't have to. I mean, maybe people don't want to. It's not, you don't have to.
Shehanaz should speak up too.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. This is Shehanaz from Yemen.
Yemen. Okay.
Yemen.
Shahanaz. And Michaela, I don't know if you're both from Yemen. Shahanaz,
Michaela, try
Let me
again.
finish
Please.
talking to Shahanaz, please. Shahanaz has been invaluable in getting this whole thing on, so we all need to thank her very profusely. Thank you.
I would be glad if this conversation could continue as a discussion group. There'd be a way the people who registered, Gloria, you probably have the contact, could send out an initial interest and see if we can continue a discussion, because there's much more to fill in and expand. And
definitely
there's a desire for action program.
Okay, good idea, Alan, and I will try to follow up.
Yeah, send out an invitation to the people who registered and see who wants to join and who might else from the WILPF Congress and International might want to continue this conversation.
I will try. Remember, technology sometimes doesn't cooperate, but I will.
Michaela writes she's from Vienna.
Yeah, I saw that. Thank you, Michaela.
And I'm from Palo Alto in California, where our local newspaper does every Sunday have recipes from many different countries and focuses on the restaurants from many different countries.
Oh, that's ahead of most of them.
Oh, good.
The counterphobic recipe book.
Yeah. Okay, and there, Ellen Schwartz, where are you, by the way?
Where am I? I'm hiding. I'm from Sacramento, California, United States.
So you were in the same place as Darian?
Yes, Darian, correct.
Darian.
And I guess we do have a local newspaper, but I stopped subscribing a couple of years ago. It was like, $200 a year for the electronic version only.
I know, it's not cheap anymore.
I know Peggy and Teresa. Oh, I don't know. Peggy is from Atlanta. I don't know if she's still here.
And Teresa, I believe, is from Columbus, Georgia. She used to be anyway.
And I'm from Vermont right now in the summer, usually from Cambridge. Marty, you're
From Western Mass.
Yeah.
Cambridge?
Western Mass.
Okay.
I'm Western North Carolina.
And Alan is in France, I think. Alan.
Yes, it's dinner time in France, and I'm about to sign off, but this has been very valuable.
Well, thank you. You did an excellent help to this whole project, Alan. And give Odile our best. Okay, I think right now we're sort of going to let people get on to the rest of their day, because we all have many workshops we're invited to, and then comes the whole triennial, and I have to go to all those middle of the night things, so I've got a lot. So I think I would like to thank you all for being here and let you get on with the rest of your day.
There is another pre-Congress workshop coming up in 26 minutes.
What is that one?
That's our WILPF legacy, our future of I forget what it's called.
The legacy workshop is in 20 minutes, so go to the page where they're listed and sign up.
Yep.
Can you put the link in the chat, Ellen?
No, I can't. But maybe,
probably.
Maybe
let me do that before we go.
That would be good.
And if I may, we're also organizing sessions on the 15th and the 16th. Please also join us. We will be talking about Lebanon, Palestine, and Yemen, and on 16th on Lebanon. So you're most welcome to join us and in the discussion.
Wonderful.
Thank you. Wonderful.
Yes, and Disarm has one at 9 o'clock Pacific time on the 15th about nuclear weapons.
Yes.
And just to say at 2 o'clock here, I will be supporting England in the World Cup. This is another sport. We forgot to mention sport. Sport is also a form of diplomacy.
That is true, but often it's
England versus who?
We are against today Norway.
Who?
Yeah.
Norway. England
Norway.
versus Norway in the quarterfinals. I'm wearing my England shirt.
Cheryl, you know there's a tremendous scandal about the coach that coached the Mexican English game, and I'm on the other side. I'm on the Mexican side on that. They really want to redo the match because they feel it was corrupted.
It is the referee. You're talking about the referee.
The referee, yes.
Yes, and the Egyptians are also complaining.
And the Norwegians were donating the profits to Palestine, so we need to support Norway.
Yes, I want to add one thing in here. On the same day where we had the Egyptian and Argentinian game, and definitely Egypt was criticizing the referee's decision. On that same day, before the game started, Israel assassinated the Egyptian person who was in charge of displaying the games in Gaza. So just put the links here and there.
Oh my goodness.
Well, there's a lot of problems. So you could say it's a two-edged sword with sports. It's so big, so huge that it can be used either way. And that's the unfortunate. That wasn't the intent of the people who revived it.
Unbelievable. The one thing we could do to challenge nations, challenge each other, is through sports, and they're screwing that up. Makes me very
angry. They've been doing that for a long time, Ellen. Remember the 1936 Olympics where Hitler turned it into a showcase for Nazis? Yeah,
Instead of going to war, we could be battling out on the soccer field.
Well, it doesn't stop there. That's the trouble. Doesn't stop there.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
And thanks to Gloria McMillan for pulling this off.
Yes.
People are all
glorious day.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.